Greetings, adventurers, and welcome back to the Den of the Drake. Other dragons hoard gold, while I hoard internet cringe. Reddit. I would say never change, but please, for the love of God, everyone wants you to change. It's pretty telling that Reddit was originally designed as a place to exchange information, but the best way to gain access to said information isn't just to ask a question. No, you gotta post a statement you know is wrong and then sift through the dozens of, actually comments to find someone who knows what they're talking about. God, I wish I was kidding. While a massive chunk of Reddit's user base believes that their wisdom is the peak that humanity has to offer, there are a few who recognize that, maybe I am the asshole. Enter the AITA post. Originally, these types of posts were quarantined to one subreddit, but recently, a not insignificant amount have been popping up in the RPG horror story space. AITA posts can be judged according to one of three categories. You're the asshole, not the asshole, and everybody sucks here. You all already know that judging Redditors is my bread and butter. But being explicitly told to judge an OP in the title of the post? Oh baby, count me in. Feel free to leave your own thoughts down in the comments, by the way. Someone call Kendrick Lamar because I got a feeling that this Drake is about to get spit roasted for saying some stupid shit. Ladies and gentlemen, court is now in session. Let's go ahead and dive right into the judgmental side of r/RPG horror stories. Enjoy. Story number 1 comes from Reddit user Dex Torres and is titled AITA for telling my player he doesn't understand my DM style. Yesterday I kinda got into it with one of my players when I was running a one-shot for him and another friend of mine since everyone else for the game was unavailable. One thing I've always told my players is that I am a minimalistic type of DM, which means I only give my players the bare minimum information they need to draw a conclusion. I'm not going to hold my players' hands, and I'm going to respect their intelligence. While I will never twist a player's words and use it against them, if they want to look for something or someone, they need to tell me because I can't read their mind. Apparently, one of the players at my table didn't understand this, and I had to explain it to him. What had happened is that as the pair was making their way through this facility trying to escape, they came to an elevator but found out that it wasn't working, and that they needed a security level clearance keycard to open and override the elevator's controls. The player asked, "Do we remember seeing anyone or anywhere that might have been security?" To which I replied, "No, you haven't been searching any of the bodies or rooms, so you don't know." Up to that point, the duo has just been walking around aimlessly, poking their heads in places or seeing bodies on the ground and just ignoring them. The player in question got frustrated and said, "I wouldn't notice if someone was security. Like I wouldn't just look at the body and notice that they were in a security outfit." No, not really, because you didn't inspect the body. If you're looking for something in particular, you need to tell me. If I say, "You see a body on the ground, blood pooling around their corpse and oil spilling from their faceplate," it's up to you to ask, "Does he look like he's security?" To which I can say yes or no. Or ask, "Does he look like someone who's important or a guy who knows what's going on?" I can say yes, he's wearing a lab coat, and there is a broken data slate not too far from the body. Or, no, he's just a scientist. I can't read minds, and you haven't been taking the time to explore the area to get that information. Basically, how I run my games is all about the control of information. If they see a body, it's up to the player to use the clues around them to figure out what's going on. Asking questions leads to information, information leads to knowledge, and knowledge leads to understanding, and understanding leads to power and choice. I'm not gonna tell you if someone's part of the security team unless that information is relevant. If I describe you walking into a room and you see a desk, the implication is that you might want to check it for information, weapons, documents, etc., etc. I'm not gonna say, "There's a desk and checking the drawers reveals a note sitting inside." If you don't tell me you check the desk, I'm gonna assume you ignore it unless stated otherwise. I might give you one last hint before leaving if the information in the desk is valuable. You don't interact with it, you don't get to learn anything. While thankfully this issue straightened itself out and the duo began searching the subsequent rooms and bodies they found, the player was still slightly frustrated by the whole ordeal. And I can't help but feel like either he or I could have handled the situation better. Oh ho ho! This fucking guy. Imagine watching a deaf and blind person walk into the path of a speeding bus and doing nothing because I want to respect their intelligence. Yeah, okay, buddy. Obviously, the player didn't understand your DM style. Well, I understand it, and I understand that it's garbage. As a DM, it is literally your job to act as your player's eyes and ears. That's how DMing works. If you don't mention something, it doesn't exist. Period. No, but please, enlighten me about what is so fun about spending 45 minutes in every room asking about every inconsequential detail because you know your prick of a DM is gonna shame you for not wondering what the fucking ceiling tastes like. I investigate the desk. You find nothing. I investigate the computer. You find nothing. I investigate the filing cabinet. You find nothing. I investigate the bodies. You know what? Just fucking kill me. And I'm sure you justify yourself by saying something like, it's more realistic this way, except it's really not. People in real life don't need to give everything an ocular pat down to gain information. Most of what we perceive passively. If that were not the case, every one of our ancestors would have been ripped apart by lions on the plains of Africa before we even walked upright. Details like what the bodies were wearing are basic information that needs to be described the second the players set foot in the room. Your minimalistic DM style would only be realistic if you were running a Helen Keller simulator, you fucking donkey. You say that you don't expect to be reading the player's mind, so why the hell are you expecting them to read yours? As a DM, there are two unforgivable blunders: creating an environment where the DM-player relationship is adversarial and making your game boring. And your DM style does both. You are the asshole, and I didn't even need to make an investigation check to figure that out. Story number 2 comes to us from Reddit user IcarusQT and is titled AITA for RPing a gay character despite one of my gay friends that always hits on me in-game. I know this probably sounds horrible, but hear me out. I, 30 male, have a group of friends that always bounce together from campaign to campaign. A couple of the dudes take turns DMing. Well, one of my gay friends, 28 male, always plays a female character. And when he does, he constantly hits on me in-game. I know he mainly does it as a joke, and it usually gets everyone laughing. I'll laugh about it and always have to awkwardly turn him down in character. I'm far from anything even remotely close to homophobic, but I just don't have it in me to flirt back with him. Now, here's where I might be the asshole. I started up a new campaign. In anticipation of the same trend carrying over, I made my character gay. And sure as shit, he makes a female character as usual. First session in, his character starts making advances towards me, and I politely responded with, "Sorry, I'm not interested, and it's nothing against you, I just don't like women at all." "Wait, so are you saying that you're gay?" "I sure am." He then goes out of character and says, "Alright dude, you can't just randomly say your character is gay on the spot." "I'm not. My character is actually gay. I even wrote it in my backstory." The DM nods and it checks out. My gay friend then gets irate and starts calling me a homophobe, saying that I can't RP a gay character and how I'm doing it just to spite him and that I'm a bigot. Now he's right in the sense that I was doing it to spite him, but I was mainly doing it for fun. I truly thought he and everyone else would think it was hilarious. I had no malicious intent, I was just trying to be funny. I tried texting him afterwards, explaining myself that I truly meant no disrespect, that I was just trying to be funny. But he just called me a homophobe and won't respond to any more of my texts. I feel awful about the whole thing, but I really thought it would be something small and funny. So, what do you guys think? Am I the asshole? I don't know, the fact that he interprets you making a character that would explicitly not want to bone him as homophobic says a lot more about him than it does about you. Not only is your friend, in air quotes by the way, using his sexuality to bully you into tolerating his bullshit, but he's also a massive hypocrite. He's playing exclusively straight women. You don't know how to RP a gay character. Oh really? What does that look like? Would it have been less offensive if OP made a character wearing leather fetish gear equipped with high heels and an 8-inch lollipop shaped like a dick? F off. Last time I checked, gay people were people, and implying that there's a correct way to roleplay a homosexual character is pretty cringe, not gonna lie. But let's not kid ourselves, I doubt that this guy is actually upset about any imagined homophobia. He's probably more upset that you took away this one avenue to flirt with you without consequence. Imagine for a moment that OP is a woman playing in a group of men, and one guy aggressively and unapologetically hits on her every single game, without a shred of consideration to whether or not it makes her feel uncomfortable. But all of a sudden he throws a massive temper tantrum and calls her a man-hater for creating a character that was not sexually compatible with his own. Yeah, sounds pretty stupid and creepy. So, should this guy get a pass because he's a certified member of the Alphabet Mafia? Despite what Twitter would tell you, no. No, he should not. Not the asshole. Story number 3 comes from Reddit user Seawood Scribe and is titled AITA for not focusing on an irrelevant backstory. I had a casual game going, kind of an overarching plot, but was more of a social event than anything. Just friends gathering to play D&D and catch up. Most of the time, the game was reasonably enjoyable for the other players and for myself, except that one of my players exclusively wanted to use game time to have their PC visit her mother and sister, and talk about the fact that they had recently moved from the country to the city and play loot with her brother. There were so many plot hooks that were interesting to all the other players. A guild war in the city, a Null army amassing in the north and led by a demon cult, a whole town getting sucked into the abyss, not to mention a beholder slowly pulling the strings on everything. Each of my players were invested in at least one of the plots, except for this one. This player wanted to sit around and play house, and felt like they should have at least some time to do that every session because all of the other players were already having their fun. In my opinion, if a vast majority of players have no investment in this family and want to focus on other things that they collectively find more interesting, then that should be the focus of the game. AITA for putting the focus on the storylines that were interesting to all but one of the players. Should I have just explained to them that they could have, say, one session of family downtime, but that if they want a whole game of it, they might as well play a different table or in a different system? Okay, so this story has a part 2, so I will reserve casting a definitive ruling until after we read that. But for right now, let's examine part 1. So right now, it seems like this is a classic misalignment of expectations. I'll start by noting that a not insignificant amount of blame can be given to the DM here. As a DM, it is your responsibility to set expectations for the campaign. Like you said yourself, the expectation for this game is one of a casual setting masquerading as a social event. So can you really blame a player for treating it like that? Some people play D&D like it's The Witcher, and others want to play it like it's Animal Crossing. It's up to you to make sure that the players who are dead set on playing Animal Crossing are prepared to stab some goblins in the neck for the sake of party happiness. However, a lot of this falls on the player themselves here. This player has made a lone wolf. Not your typical sit in the darkest corner of the tavern edgy type lone wolf, but a lone wolf nonetheless. Their entire motivation for existing is something unique to them and them alone. I get wanting to build a character a certain way, but insisting on making every session revolve around their backstory shows a certain level of selfishness that rubs me the wrong way. Now, it would be one thing if they tried to make an effort to tie it into the main story or involve other players, but this chick is really trying to hijack each session in an effort to force all the other players to watch her play house. If it were me, every time she says she wants to go visit her family, I would just say, okay, you visit your family, and then make a point of immediately moving on to the next player. Solo projects don't work in team games like D&D, and if you insist on doing them repeatedly, you need to be okay with having the spotlight taken away faster than P. Diddy's hard drives. I had some issues with the way a player was handling their backstory, and I had a lot of fantastic advice in the thread. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate the advice I got, and there were a lot of really good opinions that boiled down to 1. Talk to the player in question and explain that it's not the kind of game that I want to run. 2. Also explain to them that it's only relevant to their character, not the whole party, and thus should not be the focus of the story. 3. Handle that kind of stuff out of session in Discord chats. And 4. Have the Null Cult and/or Beholder and/or rival gangs in the city kidnap the family as leverage against the PC. Point 4 was especially diabolical and brilliant. I followed advice on the first 3 points, and the player was actually butthurt that we didn't want to focus on the PC's domestic life in-game, but they went along with it. Well, mostly went along with it. We started having PC domestic life conversations in Discord, but the next time we met in person to play the game, this player kept asking everyone if they remembered what the PC and their mother were talking about in the Discord. This pattern repeated for 3 sessions. So it was time for advice point number 4. A faction in the city that was sympathetic to the Null Cult kidnapped their family. This worked wonderfully at first. The player was deeply invested in the story and took the foreground in a positive way for once, rallying the other players to focus on the issue at hand and stop the Nulls. Last night, it led to a fantastic battle where they defeated the head Null cultist in the city. Not the final BBEG, but it was a great milestone. But in the frenzy, the PC's brother died and their mother lost an arm. It was always possible for them to be saved, the dice just fell against them. At least none of the PCs died. As the dice fell, the mother was supposed to die too, but I decided to be merciful. The player was so upset. She stormed out of the room without saying goodbye, and I got a bunch of texts later in the night about how could I have done this? Don't I know how damaging and upsetting that was? Their PC would want to commit self-die now. There's nothing to live for if they can't succeed when they really need to, etc., etc. So, what the hell, Reddit? AITA, or is it time to boot this player? What would you do? TLDR. One of my players wanted to focus almost exclusively on their PC's family in the city, instead of all the different quests in the world at large, taking up large chunks of multiple sessions in a row by playing house and boring me and the other players. Oh boy. Players who act like every character they create is some kind of self-insert are both a curse and a blessing. They can be a curse because it's super easy for them to slide into main character syndrome, but they're also a blessing because they tend to be the types of people who become most invested in the game itself. I feel like a lot of this situation comes from a misalignment of expectations like I said before. The idea of having her family be kidnapped by the Null Cult was great. That was an excellent way to get her invested in the actual plot of the setting and engage in activities that the other players actually give a damn about. But the problem I have with how OP handled things comes from what actually happened to the player's family. You said you showed mercy and allowed the mom to live. So why not do the same for the brother? It's pretty clear that the player enjoys the cozier side of the role-playing experience, so ripping away what she enjoys and literally killing it doesn't seem like the most effective way to make her want to engage with the world, because it's essentially punishing her for doing what you wanted her to do. You want to know how to convince an Animal Crossing player to try Doom? Here's a hint, it's not unloading both barrels of a shotgun into Tom Nook's face. That being said, the player's reaction was way over the top. Yeah, you might have broken her toy, but that doesn't mean she needs to be such a baby about it. Going back to this kind of player being a blessing and a curse, they're heavily invested in the game, so any attack on their self-inserts can easily be perceived as attacks on them personally. I didn't say it wasn't stupid, I just said it was something that happens. At the end of the day, this is a magical world with hyena cults and bored gods and devils who will grant boons to mortals for shits and giggles. So how about instead of being all sad and, "Wah, now my character has nothing to live for," how about you pull yourself up by your bootstraps and sell your soul to some devil to revive your dead brother like the boomers intended? This whole situation can absolutely still be salvaged, but if she insists on making this show about her, you may have to give her the boot. I'm gonna go with everyone sucks here, with a slight lean towards you not being the asshole. With the stories at their end, I think that's a good place to wrap up. I'm gonna go ahead and make the executive decision and say no Gallery of the Drake this week for a few reasons. Reason number one is I'm still recovering from being a little sick. It is 3 o'clock in the morning and I really want to go to sleep. Please, sleep or death. I'll take either at this point. I promise I'll bring it back next week, but right now I just really don't have it in me. The artists who make me fan art, they put their best into creating it, and I want to make sure I can give them my best in return. And right now, I am not at my best. So on that note, I think that's a good place to wrap up. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and send in your fan art. And if you feel like supporting the channel further, my Patreon and merchandise links are in the description. I would like to thank you all for listening, and I hope to see you next time in the Den of the Drake.